friends, Sleepy here, and welcome to another episode of the weekly playlist. It's Friday, so it's time to share with you guys the games I have been playing during the week, and I do have some wonderful games I want to share with you guys, let you guys know my thoughts and opinions on them, because these really fun games, and I definitely think you guys should check them out. I actually just got off of being on vacation. I was on vacation for 8 days. My vacation ended this past Wednesday. Unfortunately, I had to go back to work yesterday, which is Thursday. Luckily, I only had to have a short 6-hour shift early in the morning, and then I have off today, and then I got to work the next 4 days after that, and then I'll be off again. But, I'm back to the daily grind, back to working again, but I do have 3 more vacations planned this year. I will be taking one towards the end of September, which will be my 2-year wedding anniversary, so I'll be off for at least 7 days during that. And then I've also got a week planned in October and a week planned in November, so I definitely still have 3 more weeks of vacation this year to take. But I've had an absolute blast. It was a nice time to relax and have to think about work or any of the craziness that happens there. I was able to just relax, spend time with my wife, my son, friends, and I was able to do some game hunting, and I also got to play a lot of games, so it was awesome. And so the first game we're going to talk about that I actually did beat, and I talked about this last week, was Silent Hill Downpour. So I beat this again for the 5th time. I got the final 5th secret ending, which you have to, it's called Digging Up the Past. In order to get that side quest, you have to beat the game at least once. They have the good and bad endings and all that kind of stuff and different ways to get it, and so I wanted to go back and finally beat that. There's a couple YouTubers I watch here that stream gameplay videos and stuff, and watching the one, he was playing Silent Hill Downpour, and I just like, man, I really want to play that, so I decided to pick it up. I'm like, I'll go back and beat it through, and I had a fantastic time with this. Now, a lot of people hated on this game, didn't really like the combat in it, didn't like the game overall, because they couldn't really like it compared to the original Silent Hill trilogy, which, those original 3 Silent Hill games are amazing. But I definitely recommend give this one a try. Don't listen to all the hate and all that stuff. Give it a try for yourself, because it's actually a pretty decent game, and one of the better, more of the modern games compared to like the Silent Hill Homecoming, which I played Homecoming. I beat that, got all the endings. I still enjoyed it, but not as much as I did Downpour. I also had that Silent Hill Shattered Memories game where they basically took all the combat out. I played that a little bit and didn't really care too much for it. But as far as for like a more modern Silent Hill game, Silent Hill Downpour is not too bad. It has the theme of rain and water, and in order to going to the Hell world is a lot different than the other games. It's basically once you have like water or like a fire or something happens and water comes out, like that's what ends up transporting you to the other world, which is like a water-based one, and there's a giant red orb that chases you, like in Shattered Memories, enemies and stuff like that. And overall, though, it's a fun game. I really enjoyed the story. You play as Murphy Pendleton. You're a convict, and you're being transported to another prison, and on the way, the bus gets knocked off the road, you crash, and then you get out of the prison bus, and then you have to make your way to Silent Hill, which you eventually make it to. And I don't want to go into too much detail because it'll ruin the story, but the story is definitely enjoyable. Murphy Pendleton is a excellent character to play as, and he reacts more too. That's one big thing you'll notice is if you played the other Silent Hill games, like a dog jumps at him and they just like, whatever, nothing happens. But like Murphy sounds like, he'll scream and he'll react to enemies jumping out, and he'll say things like, Jesus Christ, like someone jumps at him. There's a crazy these annoying witch creatures, and they have big claws on their fists, and there's a time early in the game when one jumps at you and it freaks him out, and he actually reacts to it. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now the combat can be a little clunky at times, can be hard to, but you have to just learn how to control it. And another thing I noticed about it is, they made the combat kind of clunky, and I feel that it fits the story, because Murphy Pendleton is not a superhero, he's not a Master Chief, he's not a Kratos, he's not a Master Ninja, he's not a martial arts expert, he's just a regular, everyday, average Joe guy. And in order for him to, fight guys, enemies and stuff, he's using just ordinary weapons, pipes, brooms, shovels, things like that. and he doesn't have the best combat skills, which I feel fits well for the story because you're just an average Joe, so nobody is going to be an expert fighting these crazy creatures with weapons or guns or anything without any kind of training. And so I feel that adds more, makes the game feel more authentic to me, and I enjoyed the combat even though it was a little clunky. And then you also you can block enemies and stuff, and you have to learn. You can't just hold the block button down and it just permanently blocks you, because enemies will break through your stance. So you have to learn how to block and then hit the block button more than one time, and like counter the when their moves. Like block right when they're about to hit you. You can block their attacks, and you just have to learn how to successfully block. Just from watching that one guy play the game, like I could just see he just really didn't have the combat mastered. And once you do have it mastered, it's not too hard to defeat these enemies. Even some of the bigger, stronger ones, there's a nice variety of them. And once you learn how to really defend them and what weapons to use, the game can be a lot more enjoyable. Now, unlike previous Silent Hill games, there's not like you pick up a pipe like in the original Silent Hill 2, anything like that, and you use it the whole game. This one, the weapons have durability, and after a while they'll break and you have to get new ones. And you can only hold 2 weapons at a time. So let's say you find a gun, you can holster it and use a melee weapon. But if you find 2 guns, like the shotgun, there's also a handgun, there's a nail gun in the game, you can only have 2 of the 3 of those. So you have to decide what weapons you're going to use as you go throughout the world. And there's weapons littered everywhere. Guns aren't as plentiful as melee weapons. They're in specific areas and you can find them doing side quests and stuff, but they become very helpful. Now, the ending is also affected by how many enemies you kill. I'll just let you know that you can't kill more than 20 enemies if you want to get the good ending. And then there is one crazy achievement, which I did, is to beat the entire game without killing a single enemy. That was not an easy task, but I did accomplish that a couple years ago. And it's got 5 endings, and it's just a really fun game. I loved the town of Silent Hill. I also like the fact that this actually had side quests and is more open world. There's actually 14 side quests total, 13 of them, or it's 13 total, something like that. Either way, you can do like 13 side quests. I'm pretty sure there's 14 total or 13, but you can only do all of them but except that final one, which I did, which gives you that final ending in one playthrough. And you really have to search the town, look for clues and stuff, solve puzzles, things like that. And of course, you can set the game to either normal or you can set it to the hard difficulty, which I still need to go back and beat this on the hardest difficulty and unlock that. And that's the only achievement I'm missing. Everything else, I got all the collectibles, I got all the side missions, got all the endings, everything like that. I just need to go through eventually. And I'm not going to do it now just because I beat it recently, so I'll take a break from it. But maybe in a year or 2 from now, I'll pick it back up. But I definitely recommend, give Silent Hill Downpour a try. It's not as bad as people made it out to be, and it's actually a pretty fun game. I had a lot of fun with it. It's also compatible with the Xbox One, and that's actually what I played it on. And it does upscale the graphics a little bit, and the performance is better, the loading, everything like that. So do recommend checking this out. Very fun game. I also played some Sega Genesis games. I've just been in a mood now. I played a lot of NES the past couple months, and I decided, I wanted to try out some of my Genesis games since I have a bulk of my Genesis collection here. And the first title I played was Boogerman, a pick and flick adventure. I have loved this game since a kid. I used to have it on Super Nintendo, but I always preferred the Genesis. I just like the controls, and I just like the sounds and music of the Genesis version better. It's also a lot cheaper on the Genesis. It's like a $15 to $20 game, where the Super Nintendo one's like $50 to $60 to $100, especially here. If you want to get a complete copy, there's like $100 for it, which is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, you could get the ROM and play that, but it's a really fun game. So you play as Boogerman. He works at this like museum, and he's just a janitor that's cleaning, and then this crazy booger guy wants to take over the world, and you have to stop him as a superhero. But it's kind of a disgusting game because you use boogers, you flick them at creatures, you can burp to kill enemies, you can fart to kill enemies, you can eat these carrots that can make you fart fire, but then you can also use it to fly. And it's just overall a really disgusting game, but that's kind of how the 90s was. 90s with kids and stuff like gross things, Gag and Nickelodeon, just all kinds of different things. Like the 90s is really big into disgusting, crude humor, and that's what's in this game, but it is definitely worth checking out. There's several bosses, several different worlds. It's like 5 worlds, and each one has 4 levels, and then a boss battle. Like the first boss guy is this hillbilly called Hick Boy, and he has a chicken he throws at you called it's like Buckle or something. He throws them at you, and you learn the patterns and stuff, and you can defeat the enemies. But it's a platformer, and if you collect the various collectibles, which are these little plungers, at the end of the stage, you can get up and get a free guy. One of the interesting things is you start off with only having 2 hits before Boogerman dies, but if you find these red capes, he'll say red. When he picks them up, it'll give you an additional hit, so you actually can get up to having 3 hits where your cape will flash between red and yellow. Then when your cape is red, you have 2 hits, and then when your cape is yellow, if you get hit one more time, you die. And when he dies, he just melts away, which is pretty cool aspect. Now, this game does not have a saving feature, but it does have a password system, which is nice. So if you make it up to like the boss and you run out of continuous, you can type in that password and go right back. Or if you want to just be lazy, you can get all different passwords and jump right to the final level, which, that kind of takes the fun out of it. But I'm about halfway through the game. I have my password written down so I could resume it later on. But it's a fun game. Like I said, there's some really disgusting things. Some of the levels have like ears attached to the walls with pus coming out of them. There's like wounds that look like scabs in the area with green ooze coming out, and then you go down toilets to go into the sewers to go to bonus levels, and it's just weird, strange creatures burping, farting, throwing boogers at people. You also dig in crap too. There's like shit on the ground, and he digs in it and finds things in it and gets excited. So it's one of those odd games you can get for the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo. If you've never played it, you gotta pick it up. It definitely screams 90s, and I love this game. I have beat it a couple times, and I want to beat it again this month, so definitely check that out. Next up, I was playing Castlevania Bloodlines, which this is a fantastic Castlevania game. I think a lot of people overlook this one because it wasn't on the Super Nintendo, it was on the Sega Genesis. It can get difficult at times, but it is a fun game. So this is another one that doesn't have a save feature, but it does have passwords, so you can go back to where you started. If you run out of continues, you have to start the whole game over, where you can just type in your password and go back to where you are. Several different levels. I made it about halfway through the game on this one as well, and it definitely has that Castlevania difficulty. Now, it's not as good as the Castlevania 4 on Super Nintendo, but it's definitely I like it more than the ones on the NES, even though those ones are classic. This one's not quite as hard as some of those, especially like number 2 and that stupid transition between night and day. Like if they had gotten rid of that or made that like happen every 20 or 30 minutes, that game would have been a lot better, even though it's still a fun title. But definitely recommend you check Castlevania Bloodlines. You have 2 different characters, one with a whip and then one that has a spear, and they both have their own strengths and weaknesses, and it's a really fun game. Absolutely loving. I do have to warn you though, if you want to buy a cartridge of this, it's getting expensive, 40, 50, 60 bucks. So I wouldn't recommend just getting the ROM for it, unless you can get it for a deal. Like I got mine in a trade from a buddy a long time ago. But overall, I'm having a lot of fun with Castlevania Bloodlines. I've actually never beat it, so this is another title I want to beat for the Sega Genesis. Definitely recommend you guys check that out. And the last Genesis game I've been playing, actually was playing quite a bit today, and I'm about halfway through this game because it's not a super long game. It's Beyond Oasis. So this is an action adventure game, kind of like an RPG, but it doesn't have a leveling up system. You have a dagger that has unlimited uses, and you can find swords and you can find bows and flaming bows in the game, but they all have like a number attached to them, which they only have so many uses. So if you get like a big sword and attack enemies and it has a 10 on it, you can only kill like 10 enemies, and then the sword breaks and it's gone. You have to find another one. There's also items that can heal you, and then you also have a magic system, and there are different spirits in the world that do different things that you have to find. Early on, there's a water one and then a fire one that you can unlock, and they can use fire attacks, and that uses your mana, which you do have items that can replenish your mana, and you get random stuff from enemies as you kill them. There's a huge variety of enemies, and it's a really fun game. Now, it starts off pretty easy, but as you progress through the game, it progressively gets more difficult. But it's a fun little game, fun story, and I'm having a blast playing it. And I haven't played this one in a long time. I do have to warn you though, this is another one of those really expensive $50, $60, $70 games, $80, $100 if it's complete. So that's another one I'd recommend to get the ROM for if you can, if you want to play. And if you really want to get a copy, hopefully you can get it cheap. I got this cheap at like a Goodwill. It only cost me a couple bucks, but that was several years ago. Definitely recommend Beyond Oasis. So it is a fun action adventure game. Unlike like an RPG that's no turn-based, the action and combat is live, so they have enemies, you fight them right there. Your guy can punch and kick enemies, and then use his sword or dagger if he has it. Use magic attacks, and he also can use big swords on enemies as well. Really fun game. I highly recommend you guys check out Beyond Oasis. It's a great game for the Sega Genesis. Definitely should be in anybody's Sega Genesis library if you can get it for a good price. Don't pay that $80, $100 for it. It's a great game, but it isn't worth $100. Try to get it cheap or at least download the ROM. But I'm having a blast with this one, so I'll definitely be playing this one for a few weeks. And there's more Genesis games in my library. I've got 352 Sega Genesis games. I don't have all of them with me, but I have a couple hundred here, and there's several different titles that I want to go through and play. So you guys will definitely see me playing some Genesis games. So we'll do a quick recap like we always do. I talked about Silent Hill Downpour 360 you can get on PS3. It's the most recent of the Silent Hill games. Deals with rain and water is like an aspect to it. There's no longer unlimited weapon use. You have breakable weapons you have to find. And the story overall is really done well and fun. The music is great, atmosphere, voice acting, everything is good in it. Don't believe all the hate on it. Give it a try yourself, especially if you're a fan of Silent Hill like I am. I think you will be pleasantly surprised with how decent the game is. I also talked about Boogerman, how that's just really disgusting like premise to the game. You're throwing boogers, burping, digging through shit. You're can spit on people, fart on people. You can fly with farting, and all kinds of interesting characters and stuff. But it just screams 90s because the 90s was all big about gross and odd things for kids. Definitely recommend you check that out. Also talked about Castlevania Bloodlines, which definitely feel this gets overlooked a lot from the Nintendo versions. If you have the Genesis and you've never played it and you love Castlevania, give Castlevania Bloodline a try. It's a fun game. It is difficult, but rewarding. You have two different characters to play as that have different weapons. They also have their strengths and weaknesses. Definitely recommend you check that out. And then we talked about Beyond Oasis, which is a great action-adventure game for the Genesis. Definitely recommend you get them. So let me know if you guys have played the Downpour, Boogerman, Castlevania Bloodlines, or Beyond Oasis. Love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on them. If you guys have any recommendations on games you think I should try, let me know, because you guys always suggest really fun games. I'd also like to hear what games you guys have been playing lately. Alright, I want to thank you for watching. Take care. Have an amazing day, guys, and I will see you next time.